it created shockwaves. When Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni stood on live television in 2019 and exposed how France used the CFA franc to control its former African colonies, the world gasped. She revealed how African countries were forced to hand over precious resources, especially gold, in exchange for paper printed in Paris and circulated in Africa as currency. It was modern colonialism, hidden behind economics. Now, years later, Senegal seems to have taken notes. On April 8, 2025, in a move that stunned even seasoned observers, President Bassirou Diomaye Faye announced that Senegal would abandon the CFA franc once and for all, and alongside it, order French troops to leave by September. Two of France's deepest levers of power in West Africa, money and military, were dismantled in a single morning. So, what happens when a nation decides overnight to cut the shackles that exploit its economy? What happens when a system built over 80 years, designed to keep Africa dependent, suddenly collapses? This is not just Senegal's story. It is a story that may change the balance of power in West Africa, and perhaps the world. But why target the CFA franc first? And what does this reveal about Senegal's real fight for sovereignty? In this video, let's find out. To understand the magnitude of Senegal's break, one must first examine the origins of the CFA franc itself. Created in 1945, in the aftermath of World War II, France designed the CFA franc not merely as a financial instrument, but as a colonial tool to maintain economic control over Africa even after formal independence. At the time, France was a weakened power, struggling to recover from German occupation. Its empire, however, still stretched across Africa. Paris knew that it could no longer directly govern these colonies. It had to design a system that kept them dependent. The CFA franc was the answer. On the surface, the CFA franc was marketed as a stabilizing mechanism. France promised its colonies that their currencies would be pegged to the French franc and later the euro, ensuring low inflation and easy trade with Europe. But beneath this surface of benevolence was a calculated strategy of control. By law, member states of the CFA zone had to deposit half of their foreign reserves into the French treasury. Just imagine the exploitation painted in sober terms here. France acted as the guarantor of convertibility, but in exchange, it retained enormous influence over their monetary decisions. This arrangement meant that exchange rate adjustments, borrowing policies, and even national fiscal strategies could not be fully sovereign. African finance ministers might sit in their capitals drafting budgets, but the ultimate arbiter was in Paris. Critics describe this as a leash, one that ensured African economies remained exporters of raw materials, such as oil, cocoa, cotton, uranium, and fish, while Europe sent back manufactured goods. Industrialization was discouraged, innovation was suffocated, and dependence became institutionalized. However, whenever African leaders dared to challenge the system, the consequences were brutal. Togo's Sylvanus Olympio, who attempted to replace the CFA franc with a national currency in the 1960s, was assassinated in a coup widely believed to have French fingerprints. Other reformists like Thomas Sankara in Burkina Faso, Patrice Lumumba in Congo, and Muammar Gaddafi in Libya faced similar fates when they challenged Western control of African monetary or resource sovereignty. The message was clear that the CFA franc was not just money. It was an empire by another name. And for decades, France defended the CFA franc as a pillar of stability. Indeed, CFA countries often boasted lower inflation rates than their neighbors, but stability came at the price of stagnation. Africans increasingly saw it as the last visible chain of colonialism, a daily reminder that political independence had not translated into economic freedom. It is in this context that Senegal's announcement reverberated like a thunderclap. On April 8, 2025, President Faye declared that Senegal would abandon the CFA franc, effective immediately, and ordered French troops to leave the country by September. This was not just policy, it was a rupture. Senegal's move is significant because Dakar has historically been one of France's most reliable allies in West Africa. Unlike Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, which recently expelled French forces under military juntas, Senegal prided itself on being democratic, stable, and firmly aligned with the West. It hosted French military bases, cooperated on counterinsurgency, and maintained deep cultural ties with Paris. That has now crumbled. Before we continue further, tell us, are you enjoying the video? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black Africa. Let's continue now. By abandoning the CFA Franc, Senegal severed the umbilical cord that tied its economy to Paris. But more than that, it carried a symbolic weight far beyond Dakar's borders. Across West Africa, the conversation has been shifting. Citizens, intellectuals, and leaders are openly questioning whether post-colonial dependency can truly deliver prosperity. Countries that once hesitated to confront France now see Senegal as proof that it is possible. The timing is crucial. France has already been humiliated in the Sahel, expelled from Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. Now, losing Senegal, its last stronghold in the region, represents not just another diplomatic setback, but a collapse of credibility. When your most trusted ally walks away, the world begins to question whether your influence still holds any legitimacy. But abandoning the CFA Franc raises a pressing question: what comes next? Senegal cannot function without a currency system. For President Faye, the answer is the ECO, a long-discussed common currency for the economic community of West African states. The ECO has been in the works for decades, envisioned as a way to unify 15 economies under one banner. The idea is simple: reduce reliance on external currencies like the euro or dollar, facilitate regional trade, and create a stronger bargaining bloc in global markets. In theory, it could do for West Africa what the euro did for Europe. But in practice, the ECO has faced endless delays, and one can guess who might be behind them. Strict convergence criteria, such as keeping inflation below 10%, deficits under 3% of GDP, and harmonizing fiscal frameworks, have proven difficult for countries facing instability, debt, and volatile commodity markets. Some states barely meet one or two of these benchmarks, let alone all. Yet Senegal's urgency is not economic perfection, but political sovereignty. President Faye has argued that the CFA Franc, with its direct link to France, is a dead end. The ECO, even if imperfect, represents African agency. Importantly, he insists that no single member should dominate its monetary policy, unlike the CFA's Paris-centric model. As a result, there is panic in France now. Losing the Sahel was bad enough. But Senegal is different. It is not a fragile state, but a respected democracy with deep cultural ties to France. It sits on the western edge of Africa, overlooking vital Atlantic trade routes. It is a hub for diplomacy, art, and intellectual thought. For France, Senegal's exit is an existential crisis. The CFA Franc, once defended as a symbol of partnership, is now radioactive. If Senegal prospers outside of it, others like Côte d'Ivoire, Benin, and Cameroon may follow. If French troops are expelled, Paris's entire military map in Africa collapses, from the Sahel to the Atlantic. Now, France faces a credibility crisis. How can it claim to be Africa's friend when even its most loyal ally chooses rupture over partnership? Panic in Paris is not paranoia. It is recognition that its African empire, already in tatters, is crumbling faster than anyone anticipated. Senegal's strategy, however, is not isolation. President Faye has made it clear. Dakar's future lies in multipolarity. And at the center of that vision stands BRICS. The appeal is obvious. China has already built roads, ports, and stadiums in Senegal. Russia offers energy technology and military cooperation. Brazil brings agricultural expertise. vital for Senegal's food security. India provides pharmaceuticals, IT, and vocational training. South Africa offers a continental model of industrialization and access to the African Continental Free Trade Area. Perhaps most importantly, the BRICS New Development Bank offers financing without the political strings of the IMF and World Bank, which have long been accused of trapping African states in debt cycles. For Senegal, this is not about replacing one master with another. It is about negotiating on equal terms, free from colonial baggage. Now, for the first time in 80 years, Senegal holds monetary sovereignty. For the first time in decades, its soil will be free of foreign military bases. And for the first time in history, it has the chance to align with rising global powers rather than cling to a declining empire. The real test will be whether symbolic independence translates into tangible results like jobs for the youth, industrialization of agriculture, energy security, and improved living standards. Citizens will not settle for rhetoric. They demand proof. And in all this, April 8, 2025, will go down in history not as a routine policy shift, but as a rupture, a decisive break with colonial legacies. Senegal severed two chains at once. The CFA Franc, once hailed as stability but exposed as dependency, and the French military presence, once justified as partnership but revealed as control. Now, France is on high alert because it understands the stakes. If Senegal succeeds, the entire structure of French influence in Africa collapses. If Senegal thrives, the dream of a post-colonial Africa becomes reality. The world is watching. The West is anxious. And Africans, for the first time in generations, are daring to believe that freedom may finally mean freedom. What do you think? If the CFA Franc truly brought stability, why were African nations still forced to send half their reserves to France? Why do leaders like Sylvanus Olympio, Sankara, Gaddafi, and Lumumba always end up dead when they challenge colonial systems? In the comment section below, share your thoughts on whether the eco will finally become a genuine African currency, or will it be sabotaged like every other independence project? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We bring videos on Black Africa, its history, rich arts and culture, and things the world should know about. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.